Arizona basketball has a huge week with the mountain schools coming to town. What needs to happen? What is the importance of this week? All this and more on Locked On Wildcats.
You are Locked On Wildcats, your daily podcast on the Arizona Wildcats, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks for keeping it locked on Wildcats and making this your first listen of the day. I am your host, Mike Luke. All right, as always, we've got a lot to get to this show, but we need to talk about Arizona basketball, and this is going to be an all Arizona basketball show. All right, first and foremost, listen, the performance against Stanford was pathetic. I'm not breaking any news. Everybody knows exactly what we saw out there, and quite frankly, it was disgusting. Listen. I'm all more than okay with sometimes teams are just going to shoot the lights out. It's just the way it is. And sometimes there's just really nothing that you can do about it. But it wasn't really that for me. It was just the overall total lack of effort by Arizona. And this has become a little bit of an issue in that Arizona in games that they've lost and some games that they've won have not put forth a good effort from the three-point line. I mean, yes, Arizona beat Alabama. Totally get it. But guess what? Arizona was lucky that Alabama wasn't hitting shots because a lot of those shots were wide open. Purdue, obviously, you gave a lot of shots, so wide open shots to guys that are more than capable of making those shots. That was an issue as well. But against Stanford, I think it really came full force because you got to remember with Stanford's not a great team. We all know that. Stanford is sure you got a couple 5-star players on the team for sure, but overall, that's a team that Arizona should beat 10 out of 10 times. I don't care if they're playing in Maples. I don't care if they're playing in the Saguaro High School gym. I don't care if they're playing on the moon. Arizona is better than them, and they certainly didn't show that. That is Arizona, again, Arizona's just got to be better. There's really no other way to put it. And not only does Arizona need to be better, there's got to be more of a sense of, I guess, desperation because, again, this is still the same team that is not playing well coming out of halftimes, not playing well sometimes coming out of timeouts, and you start to wonder about that. Now, Tommy Lloyd talked a great deal about how this team needs to be better, and the guards need to be tougher. And that's really kind of what this comes down to. The guards need to be tougher. The perimeter defense, quite frankly, has been atrocious, and that is across the board. From Kylan Boswell, I mean, heck, Pelle Larsson is supposed to be the defensive ace, and there's a lot of times out there where you're wondering what exactly he's doing. Arizona needs to be better in that regard. Not only does Arizona need to be better in that regard, Arizona also needs to have an idea about what are you going to do on the pick and roll. We talked about this on Monday, but Arizona seems to be going under the pick and roll. That seems to be a strategy. If that's the strategy, I can't really blame basketball players for that. If the plan is to just hope the players miss threes. Again, I don't really get why that is a mentality, but if that's the mentality, so be it. But if you're hoping the teams miss threes, that also is more so on Tommy Lloyd at that point, which I think is something that you got to keep in mind. Now, when it comes to what that next step is for Arizona, we need to talk about that. First, we got to talk about Kylan Boswell. Kylan Boswell needs to be better just across the board. He needs to be better from the offense. He needs to be better defensively for sure. There's no reason that he shouldn't be a good defender. A lot of people were asking, what's the deal with why isn't Kylan Boswell better defensively? Well, he's letting everything basically be dictated. And Tommy Lloyd talked about this from the offense. And not only that, he's also letting it kind of get him down. And I think he's kind of reading too much into some of the criticism of his play. Everybody knows that Boswell's good. The reason, that he's getting more criticism, like I said, than Kirk Kriisa is because he's a lot better basketball player than Kirk Kriisa. And that is something that I think at this stage in the game, you just kind of know. All right, but if his shot isn't falling, he's got to be better defensively. Again, there's no reason that he can't. I also believe that he should be the dude who is, if he's wide open from three, I don't care if he misses it. You got to keep shooting because, again, those shots are going to fall. In Arizona, like we said, you don't need Kylan Boswell to be an all-conference caliber or an all-American caliber player. You need him to be an all-conference caliber player, though. And if he's not an all-conference caliber player, then Arizona's not going to come close to reaching what I think a lot of people hope should be that apex. Then Caleb Love. I can't really get much on Caleb Love for about really anything, to be honest with you, because listen, he's not going to be a great defender. We all know that. But I'm also not going to sit here and get mad at him because he plays it. He brings it hard all the time. I kind of need Caleb Love to just kind of keep doing what he's doing. Pella Larson, need more out of Pella. Pella is a player that Tommy Lloyd has talked about from day one defensively that he thinks should be that guy that can be a conference, can be an all-conference caliber or conference defensive player of the year. And we need to see it because, again, that's another one where I don't know that there's any reason why he can't. I'd like to see him bring a little bit more consistency. That is certainly something that we have not seen a ton of, but he's got to be able to do that. And I don't think that there's any reason that he shouldn't be able to do that. But again, that's just kind of what you're at when you're looking at those starting perimeter players. And Tommy Lloyd has talked about how the defense just hasn't been good and he needs the defense to be better. And that starts kind of with those three. Now, listen, when KJ Lewis, when Jaden Bradley come off the bench, that's going to be something where I think that, you got to look at it as I'm looking. I got a cockroach down here. But you're looking at it and you need those guys to be better as well. So it's kind of a team effort, but what you saw against Stanford just wasn't good enough. And like I said, the only guy that you really felt really brought it was Caleb Love. And then up front, Keyshawn Johnson. Listen, Keyshawn Johnson has been absolutely fantastic this season for Arizona, but there's been some games of late where he hasn't done a ton. You need Keyshawn to be a difference maker, and you need Keyshawn to be a big-time difference maker. And there's no reason that he shouldn't be able to either because he's athletic, he's springy, he's strong. Everything that you really need in a basketball player, just from an energy, from a rebound, from a hustle perspective, Keyshawn Johnson should be able to be that type of player. And Arizona needs that out of him. And if you don't get that out of him, then I think there's going to be a little bit of an issue. But that's kind of what you need. And then Umar Ballo, listen, Umar's good. Umar's always going to be a little bit limited, though. I'm not really breaking any news there. Umar's just always going to have some limitations to his game. But I don't really know what more you get out of him. And then Krivas, I'd like to see Krivas get a few more minutes just because I think Krivas can be pretty good. But let's talk about the mountain schools and what this exactly means and for Arizona. But first, LinkedIn, my friends, LinkedIn, check it out. All right, LinkedIn.com/lockedoncollege. Post your job for free at LinkedIn. Everybody knows somebody that got a job from LinkedIn. That is because LinkedIn works. Check it out again. There's a reason it's been around forever. I have an old boss that still goes on my LinkedIn, and my LinkedIn is inactive. That's probably why I'm sitting here in my living room. But either way, LinkedIn.com/lockedoncollege. That's where it's at. Post your job for free. Whether you're hiring, whether you're looking for a job, this is your one-stop shop. Check it out, LinkedIn. Thanks for keeping it locked on Wildcats and making this your first listen of the day. I am your host, Mike Luke. All right, now let's get into a little bit of where Arizona is now with the mountain schools. I would imagine that with the line the way it is now, it looks like it's about 11. I would imagine that Cody Williams and Tristan Da Silva are probably out for Colorado. I'm actually a little bit bummed by that because those two, I'd like to see Colorado at full strength. Colorado is a good basketball team. And I think that Arizona needs to beat a good basketball team, especially with the way that they came off that game against Stanford. But if Cody Williams, who's going to probably be a top 5 to 10 pick, is out, and Tristan da Silva, that drastically changes the outcome. This game should not be even remotely competitive if both of those young men are out. Now, a couple things to keep an eye on. KJ Simpson, ex-U of A recruit. KJ is really, really good. I think that when you look at KJ Simpson, you're probably looking at the Pac-12 Player of the Year to this point. He's been very good, and not only has he been very good, he's also been the player that I think it's fair to say Arizona would like to have him now. Arizona was kind of looking to move on after the Sean Miller era was over. They obviously moved on from the one kid that ended up back on the East Coast. I can't even remember who it was. Jalen Noel stuck around. They didn't really want Jalen Noel to stick around, but Jalen Noel stuck around. He clearly wasn't good enough to play at the U of A. KJ Simpson, though, clearly was good enough to play at the U of A, and he is one of the handful of best point guards in the country. And I think a big question about him before the year was, what kind of efficiency level was he going to have? Right now he's shooting 50-something% from the field. Has looked incredibly good doing it. And not only has he looked incredibly good doing it, he's also been physically just kind of looks the part. And I think that was the question. What kind of player would he be? He's answered that in spades. Now, Eddie Lampkin, you remember him, Eddie Lampkin from TCU. He's been talking a little bit about how, he's been looking forward to this game to be able to play Arizona because Arizona, obviously knocked TCU out a couple of years ago. I think a lot of people thought that TCU probably deserved to win that game. I'm not going to be one that's going to argue that point because I thought TCU outplayed Arizona. But either way, best teams generally win. That was the case with Arizona. But overall, this is a squad that is wounded. If you don't have Cody Williams and Tristan da Silva, then you don't have one of the most talented wings in the country, and you also don't have one of the best bigs in the conference as well. This is a game that Arizona should 1,000% be able to run. And not only should Arizona be able to run this game, Arizona should also be able to kind of get everybody back on track. In this game, I'm looking for Arizona to be able to get all of those players individually involved that we talked about. Kylan Boswell, get the shot back. Play some really good defense because, again, there's no reason the Kylan Boswell should be able to do both of those things. With Caleb Love, kind of keep doing what you're doing. The efficiencies in the 40s, keep it there. I'd love to see you get somewhere around 45%, but right now, I do think that it's more than okay where it's at. Then Pelle Larsson. Pella's just got to bring it every game. There's no reason that Pella shouldn't be better. Let's just call a spade a spade. Pella every single game. You should be able to get 12 and 13 points, 4 or 5 rebounds, 3 or 4 assists. That's what I need out of Pella, and I need Pella to play lockdown defense. I'm not exactly sure who's going to get the KJ Simpson assignment, but if Pella gets the KJ Simpson assignment, then need Pelle Larsson to play good basketball. Again, there's no reason that he shouldn't be able to do that. Then up front, Keyshawn, we need a double-double out of you, my friend. I'm looking for a 17-10 performance out of Keyshawn Johnson. Again, I don't think that there's any reason that he shouldn't be able to do that. Then Umar Ballo, listen, like I said, with Umar, it can be a little bit difficult because you don't know really exactly what you're trying to get, because, again, Umar is a little bit limited. And that's certainly not a put down to Umar Ballo, leader of men, but, again, double and play really good defense on Lampkin, especially assuming Da Silva's not there. And then off the bench, I'd like to see Moncrievas get in there, and I'd like to see Moncrievas get some more valuable time, some minutes, because Moncrievas, again, that's another guy that I think Arizona is going to need as the season goes on. Not only do I think that they're going to need him as the season goes on, I also think that being able to bring him in off the bench is something that Arizona can really is really kind of a trump card, because when you think about it, a 7'2" player that you can bring in off the bench that can do exactly what what Arizona needs from him is something that I think is quite impressive. Now, I do think that it would be nice to be able to get some other players in the mix to a certain degree. And by other players in the mix, I do think that you're talking about, KJ Lewis, Jaden Bradley, both those guys are really, really good. We all know that. But I think both those dudes just continue to improve on that. Jaden Bradley, I love the way that he brings the defense in when he's coming in. KJ, continue to follow through, continue to finish around the hoop. But then Paulius Morauskas. I kind of wonder if we're going to see a little bit more Paulie M or maybe a little Philly B being kind of that hired gun to come in there and make shots, and not only make shots, but kind of wave the crowd and say, listen, this is what we're about right here. I think one of those guys is probably going to get some minutes. And quite frankly, I'm more than okay with that. As a matter of fact, I think we should all be more than okay with that because both those guys can play. But again, there's no reason that Arizona shouldn't win this. What I would also tell people as well is that, listen, this is a long season. And again, nobody is excusing the loss at Stanford because, quite frankly, it's unacceptable. But again, this is a long season that we're looking at. And not only is it a long season, it's a season where there's going to be some ups and downs. And again, I'm going to keep bringing this up. When people say good teams don't lose to Stanford, yes, good teams do lose to Stanford. There's good teams that have lost a lot of games to bad teams. It happens in a long season of college basketball. Like I said, we're just keep going back, looking at UConn and what that means. Now, we're going to talk next about the importance of getting this sweep, getting back on track, because you got a couple other schools, though, that are going to start, it's going to start getting interesting. Thanks for keeping it locked on Wildcats and making this your first listen of the day. I am your host, Mike Luke. All right, now it's about to get interesting with Arizona basketball because, again, you've got if Arizona gets this road sweep or this home sweep, which they should, because like I said, Colorado's likely playing wounded, and Utah is still a team that Arizona should be able to beat. That said, Arizona, like I said, Arizona should be able to get both of these dubs. And honestly, it shouldn't really be that big of a problem for Arizona. So let's say you get that. You're probably moving back up to about 8 in the polls, especially if you look good doing it. But again, what I'm saying this because you got another team that's kind of coming in your rear view mirror. And by that team, I mean the Oregon Ducks. Listen, it's kind of been a helter-skelter last couple of years for Oregon, but they look like they've kind of righted the ship. Jackson Shelstad is maybe the best freshman point guard in the country. He's absolutely fantastic. But more so than anything, they're about to get healthy. They're playing without N'Faly Dante and Nate Biddle. It sounds like they're going to be getting N'Faly Dante back in a couple weeks. And if you have a fully healthy N'Faly Dante, along with and again, N'Faly Dante, and in my opinion, is the best big man in the conference when he's healthy. Love Oumar Ballo, leader of men, but N'Faly Dante is better. And then Nate Biddle. Oregon's got a lot of position flexibility because you can throw a lot of 7-foot guys out there at all different kinds of play. You get Mookie Cook back as well. So they're about to get healthy. So if you're Arizona, you need to continue to get these wins because Oregon's coming. Looking around the rest of the conference, USC stinks. That one does surprise me a little bit. I thought that Andy Enfield, I've been an Andy Enfield supporter, but when you have Boogie Ellis, when you have Isaiah Collier, when you have some of the players that they do and to look as disjointed as they have, that is a condemnation of the coach. There's really no other way to put it. As much as I'd like to back Andy Enfield, I will not back Andy Enfield. UCLA stinks. They're not going to be doing anything. And not only does UCLA stink, you kind of wonder for the future of the Bruins, where exactly are they going? Because Mick Cronin is now all out as Steve Alford players, and that's not obviously great for him. Washington isn't bad, but at the same time, I don't worry at all about Washington. right now, the only team that I kind of worry, or I don't worry because you don't really worry, but you just keep an eye on is Oregon. But the big thing that Arizona needs to do, though, is get this home sweep. You get this home sweep, you're at 3-1. And hopefully you can use that Stanford game as a little bit of a learning experience that, heck, guys, we need to be able to bring this. We need to be able to bring it on a game-by-game basis because guess what? If we don't, we can get blown out by Stanford. We can get blown out by anybody. And again, that's the way it is with college basketball. Anybody can lose to anybody if you don't bring it. This isn't the pros where, well, let's be honest here. The vintage Warriors probably not ever going to lose to the Pistons or something like that. Anybody can lose on a given day. So again, as far as a prediction, I'm looking for Arizona to handle the Colorado very easily, and I'm also looking for Arizona to take care of Utah as well. That's kind of what I'm looking at for both of these games. But either way, Arizona got to get back on track. There's no reason they shouldn't be. All right, now tomorrow we're going to be kind of going player by player, dishing out some grades as far as, how far we are in the year, what we need to see out of them, kind of a little bit more of an in-depth dive, and heck, maybe even talk a little bit of Arizona football. But either way, like we talked about, this is a great time to back the A. Arizona, both programs are on steady footing. But again, I get it. A lot of people are frustrated about that Stanford game. I am as well, but there's no reason that Arizona shouldn't be able to get back on track. And I expect Arizona to get back on track in a big way this week and then, be able to push that one forward because I don't think you're going to see a lot of losses. But on that note, as always, thanks for keeping it locked on Wildcats. As always, very, very much appreciate all of you. We're obviously going day by day, and we're going to come back, break down some of Arizona's players, what we need to see from them. But you have a great rest of your Wednesday, and we will be back with you tomorrow. Thanks for making Locked On Wildcats your first listen of the day.